So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR Radio's Nothing But The Truth with your hosts, Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno. It is a show about mindset, Dave, not about law, two New Jersey attorneys. And while we don't have the show about law, and while it's not only about attorneys, sometimes attorneys bleed into the show like today, because we have a special guest that's going to be on the show, Dave.
Yeah, Paul Lella is our newest lawyer, newest former prosecutor at the Bianchi Law Group, number 7. And it is such a pleasure, Paul. I mean, thank you, because you have a very, very unique story. I mean, and just for an overview is 20 years at the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office as a supervisor, director, then going to California with your family, some private employment, and then coming to us from the DEA.
Right.
Back in New Jersey, doing criminal defense work, right? So welcome, not only to the Bianchi Law Group, but welcome to Nothing But The Truth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Is the rumor true that the reason you came back to Jersey is because the Italian bread is better here than it is over in California?
That is the going rumor, Bob. Yeah.
It's certainly the truth.
It is, definitely.
But it may not be the reason.
The bagels are much better here, too. Well, thanks for having me. Really, I mean that sincerely. And thanks for having me with the Bianchi Law Group. I'm really excited to be here. And it has been quite a journey. Like Dave, you were saying, I did 20 years in the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office. Right before I retired, I was the director of the narcotics task force. And during my time with the Prosecutor's Office, I was also the supervising attorney in the public integrity unit. So we focused on public corruption and stuff like that, and prosecuted police officers and stuff. But then, once I retired, my wife and I, our family, we often call it the California adventure. We pushed off from New Jersey and went out to California, out to the Bay Area, and there I actually sat for and successfully passed the California bar exam, which was not fun. Not fun. It's a tough bar exam. It really is. But that was a goal of mine. I felt I really wanted to practice law out there, and I set that goal for myself, and I accomplished it. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to pass that bar exam. But then I started. I didn't immediately go into private practice. I started working for an Oakland-based nonprofit called Not in Our Town, and I went there to help them get DOJ grants to bring about resources for reducing hate crime. That's the organization is really focused on hate crime reporting and trying to bring about awareness to hate crimes. It is a great organization. I love the work that I did. It was really meaningful. It was impactful and it was powerful to bring that message to a national audience. And then from there, I went into the tech world. I worked for a company called ShotSpotter, which is the only gunfire detection and location company service in the world. And it was a great organization, great company to work for.
I want to ask you a follow-up on that piece of employment, because I mean, you're still dealing with experts in the courtroom, right?
Yes.
In that position, experts that are testifying about forensics and ballistics and trajectories and things like that,
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
How did your experience as a retired prosecutor avail and help you there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. So I was tasked with developing a cadre of expert witnesses that could go into court and testify as to the technology. What I would do is I would just run them through kind of like a moot court thing. I would sit them in a chair and I would direct examine them. I would also cross-examine them to prep them for their testimony in all the courtrooms, wherever they're going nationally. And it was also to develop, the various reports that they would prepare. I would get them to, I trained them on the reports that they would need so we could submit them to prosecutors' offices and also defense counsel, so they could be used at trial.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think that when people use the term prepping witnesses, I think that it has like a negative connotation to it. And a lot of times, in fact, the court will advise a jury during a trial that it is not only not unusual to prep a witness, in some instances it can be malpractice not to do that. Can you explain a little bit about where does that line come as far as being a lawyer and prepping a witness as opposed to telling a witness what to say?
Oh, absolutely, Bob. That's a great point. Yeah, as both as a prosecutor and a defense lawyer, I mean, you never obviously want to tell a client or a witness what to say. I would always, certainly when I was a prosecutor, when I had a witness or when I had someone on the witness stand, I'd always ask them, isn't it true that you and I met prior to trial? And what did we talk about? And things like that, to let the jury know that, yes, as you said, it's totally appropriate for a prosecutor or a defense counsel to talk to witnesses. Because if you don't know what the witness is going to say, you are, as you said, probably committing malpractice. You need to know what someone is going to say on the witness stand. And the only way you do that is sit down with them prior to trial and discuss what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed too, just as an aside because we have a lot of people that watch this show that are attorneys, when a witness is initially giving a statement, they may not understand, nor may the lawyer or the detective understand what's relevant at that time. That later down the road, when you get a lot more information, something that may not have been asked, it becomes very relevant at that point in time. Yep. So I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yep. Yeah,
all right, so from there, what'd you do?
Left ShotSpotter, and then I went into the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. In the San Francisco Field Division, I co-managed the diversion division for the San Francisco Field Division. DEA is broken into two houses, as we would call it. One is enforcement, the agents, the sworn law enforcement, and then there's also diversion, and that's the house that I was in. We've regulated drug manufacturers, drug producers, pharmacists, doctors, dentists, people who had a DEA number that could prescribe. Our job was to regulate them, make sure that they're not diverting legal drugs into the illegal drug market.
What brought you back to New Jersey?
Family and you guys. So my wife and I are the only ones that were left in California. I have 3 kids. All of my kids are on the East Coast. My family's on the East Coast. So we decided it was time to end the California adventure. You guys were gracious enough to talk to me, because I remember when I first began conversations with you, Bob, you're like, yeah, that's all well and good, Paul, but you live in California. How can you practice law out here? But yeah, so we are back.
So I think that the couple things that just strike me is that it's very unusual to find somebody who would have a career, as you did as a prosecutor, go all the way across country, 20 years or more later, and dive into taking a bar exam. I mean, that is a daunting, aggressive. So, like, we take our bar exam, and we have no intention of ever taking another bar exam again. Right?
It's not just a bar exam; it's the California bar exam too. It's probably the hardest bar exam in the country.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So I mean, it shows a. I remember a guy one time when I got my trial certification, which you were a criminal trial certified criminal trial lawyer as well, at one point. Was saying to the governor when he was trying to pitch me for the prosecutor's job, to say, you don't even have to be impressed by the fact that he became a certified criminal trial, but he took the time to get the skills, go to the courses, try the cases, fill out the application, to show somebody like you that he's worthy of such a job. And I always thought that was like a really great way that my friend Joe Spinella, who's an attorney, put that, Passaic County guy. Okay. I don't know if you know Joe from your days, but you went and did that and passed one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult bars in the country, went in and practiced. And now what I also thought was interesting is that now you're going to have a transition where you kind of come back but you're coming back in a different iteration now as a trial lawyer, and we vetted you a lot, like we do all of our lawyers, right? Yeah. I said if we call him one more time, he's just gonna hang the phone up. But
it was a great process, though.
It was to make sure mostly the first couple of times that you had the right mindset, the mindset that's connected with us, that to get the excellent results, to go all the way. And what really impressed us is what I would call old school values. And just for purposes of our audience, I don't mean old as in old in age, but old school values, old aged values, where you were talking in terms of the importance of criminal defense work, because we worry about that with our team of former prosecutors. Sure. We want to make sure that they can make that critical shift. Yep. When you talked about the need for representation, we talked about loving getting quote unquote back in the game. So how's it been?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point that you make, Bob, about the old school values. I clerked for a great judge when I first got out of law school, and I don't know if you may know him, Cy Rothenberg. Judge Rothenberg was a great mentor to me, gave me so much guidance as a young prosecutor when I joined the office. And I will never forget the words that he said to me when he swore me in as an assistant prosecutor many years ago. He said, always be fair, always be empathetic toward the defendant, always be empathetic to the victim, but always remember, never be a persecutor, be a prosecutor. And that stayed with me, and that's the way I practiced as a prosecutor. I always had empathy for both sides, because there's always both sides to a case. And I believe my reputation was that I never abused that, that office or went over and above. I was always a prosecutor, a fair prosecutor. Always be fair, always be empathetic, and never be a persecutor.
Right, like the oath says, you're not there to get convictions, but to achieve or seek justice. Correct. Right. So yeah, like I always say, and like the oath that we're supposed to be taking as prosecutors is that you're not to seek convictions, but to seek justice. And while that can come in various iterations and different forms, and people can argue about it, my point has always been, if your compass isn't pointed in that direction, you're never going to find it. It's hard enough to find when your compass is pointed in that direction. You're listening to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with Bob Bianchi, Dave Bruno. We will be right back.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
Hi, welcome back to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno every Saturday. And now a podcast, we'll talk about all that later. Paul, listen, you brought out something I think is so important, the importance of balance, right? Prosecutors, balance to achieve a just result. And I will say to you, one of the most impressive things, because you can interview great, which you did. Anybody can interview great, or a lot of people can. But it's what people say about your reputation that is going to really carry the day. And there were two folks that I had an opportunity to just cold call. Not that you brought them to me. I know them from that area. And they each said, regular guy, you could talk to him, reasonable as a prosecutor. We were sad to see him go. And that's pretty much all I needed to hear from those endorsements, because I very much respect them. But you didn't just have that philosophy from the judge you clerked for. You have been on the other side.
I have.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I went to California, I took the bar, passed it, and then I started doing criminal defense work, which was a crazy animal out in California. It's just completely different than New Jersey. So I was really, it was a very big learning curve, but it was a great learning curve, because I knew, deep down, that everyone deserves a defense, obviously. And my clients, I would always treat with respect, with empathy, and try to get them through this. Because as we all know, as criminal defense lawyers, most of our clients just need to be heard, to help them through this process. And I've always took that to heart, and that's what I did practicing out in California. I did felonies, misdemeanors, and a lot of traffic court out there too. And I loved it. I loved what I did, helping people, because that's really, that's what we do as lawyers. I would always say this when I was training young assistant prosecutors. we're in the service industry. We're here to help people. Whether you're on the defense side, you're there to help your client. Whether you're on the state side, you're there to help the victims and the people of the state. So, yeah, always, that was my philosophy.
All right, Paul, well, 20 years at the prosecutor's office. You go and do criminal defense in California. You're back here at BLG. And the number one question a lot of people have for our team of former prosecutors is, how do you go from the prosecutor's office to defending people charged with crimes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. The transition, at least for me personally, was not that difficult at all. It's kind of how I approach my practice of law. You're there to help people. Again, as I think I indicated, I always viewed practicing law as a service industry. You're there to help, whether you're a prosecutor or you're a defense attorney. And being a defense attorney is just really no different. You're there to help a client, help them through the issues and the problems that they are facing currently in that case. And if you can do so empathetically and successfully, then that is a very good thing. I think also the experience of being a prosecutor gives us a wealth of knowledge as defense attorneys, because we can think, if you can think like a prosecutor, you can think like what is coming next. Sure. Know what next steps are coming in an investigation, how a prosecutor is going to approach a typical prosecution of your client. It gives you invaluable experience.
Yeah, I think there's also another issue to it. I mean, the question always makes me laugh because but I understand how it can be so sophomorically stated. I was an assistant prosecutor and knew many assistant prosecutors who were not very well prepared, and some right out to the nefarious, withholding information, withholding discovery, individuals who committed the crimes, individuals who did not commit the crimes, and individuals who committed something less than what they were charged with. And so as a prosecutor, when I became the head prosecutor, I welcomed a very aggressive defense bar, to make sure that we're getting it right. Where should we be? Should it be a probationary sentence or should it be a life in prison sentence? There's a vast difference in between those things. So a lot of times we're negotiating. A lot of times we're using the criminal justice system because a person's addicted and or they're mentally ill. And this is an opportunity to take care of those problems. And, I think, Dave, that question's a good one, but I think it comes from people who are, Paul, you tell me, that are like these sensationalized cases. These really horrible individuals that have done some really, really bad things represent an infinitesimal slice of those who are brought in, sucked in, I may say, into the criminal justice system, which is bringing more and more people into it. And it's one of the reasons why we have one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, right, because of our laws.
No, that's very true. You're right. I mean, it is so, like the horrible crimes are such a small percentage of the criminal defense work that we as criminal defense lawyers do. Again, it's helping normal people out of the bind that they find themselves in. That's my mission.
Even when I was a prosecutor, right, Dave? I mean, I feel, and certainly as a defense lawyer, it's a different level of intimacy. You have an intimate one-on-one contact with a person, and you're watching their life fall apart. Sure. The collateral consequences, losing their jobs, their families, their reputation, is very heavy. There's a big cost that they're paying. And I think that a lot of times people don't understand that the humanity of what it is that a defense attorney, you've alluded to it, is kind of letting them breathe a little bit easier, that you're there to represent them. But Dave, Paul, we've both been around the block where we've seen some things that the police have done with regard to search and seizure, or with regard to Miranda rights, or with regard to some shady evidentiary practices that could lead to the charging of an innocent person for something they did not do. So even if your client is as guilty as heck, is it not our responsibility as defense lawyers to say, you're going to need to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, and you've done anything improper, we're not just doing it for this case, we're doing it for the whole criminal justice process. It helps every single person in the citizenry, in my opinion, not to allow these kind of practices to occur when they do occur.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very good point. Yep.
Yeah, confirmation bias. It's like, how many times do we talk about confirmation bias on the huddle? In a sense that prosecutors, police, judges Sometimes even defense attorneys, they come to these opinions early on. It's about getting to the truth, right? And then holding the state responsible. They have the burden. We all had the burden when we were there.
I think the biggest, Dave, we say is the first case I got as a defense lawyer. I jumped to the conclusion from reading the discovery and the witness statements. It was, anybody here would say, it's clear the guy did it. It was a shooting case. It's clear. There's no question about it. He had been in 4 years in jail, in the county jail at the time I took the case on. And I, thank God, and my father gave me the lesson. I went and I talked to a witness that nobody had talked to, and I thought it was odd. Right. And that guy broke the case open, and just take it for what it's worth. You know the whole story. The guy was not guilty. He spent 4 years in jail on a charge he clearly did not. And the information was in the possession of the prosecutor, and they had never turned it over to me. And I remember my father turning to me saying, well, I hope you learned a good lesson because you're still thinking like a prosecutor. That's how innocent people get convicted.
Right. I remember one we had very early in BLG, too, when we came out of the prosecutor's office. When we had that client that was sitting in jail for a half a year when the medical records didn't even support an assault.
Right.
I mean, it happens.
Dave had that case, and some other lawyer had it. He picked it up. He got the medical records. He looked at it. He goes, oh, my God. And he presented it to the prosecutor. Case dismissed, like
couldn't prove the injury that was required for an assault, right? I mean, sitting in jail. And that's, I think, that's the problem with our criminal justice system, unfortunately, is like, first of all, you need an advocate on your side. As a criminal defense attorney, what do you know of any other place where you're like, okay, you're going to be my mouthpiece. Yeah. We're going to go into the most important place of your life in a courtroom where someone's going to look at you and decide whether or not you're innocent and how much consequence is going to be. And you got to bring somebody that's going to talk on your behalf.
Right.
Go ahead, go. Right. And you better have somebody that knows it, can communicate, is going to care, is going to love, right?
And would you agree with me? You've been on both sides of this. I think there's more pressure on the defense side for that very reason.
Oh, I totally agree. Yes. Yeah. Because, again, you're guiding your client through this criminal justice system. For the most part, most of them have not been through the process. It's frightening. It is frightening. I can understand why people get nervous and they're scared, but we're there to help them and get them through this process. I normally tell all my clients when I sit down with them, I'm here to help you. I am here to help you. It's the first thing I tell them. We will get through this. And that's important for them to know.
Yeah. And I do the same thing, Paul. We'll have to wrap it up, but I always say to them, I can't guarantee your result, but I can guarantee I'm going to give you 110% of my effort. And whatever, at the end, I think if the client knows that you care about them and that you've tried your best, and certainly that's what the beauty of the huddle is, because you've been on a couple of them. Real quick, what do you think about the huddle?
I love it.
Yeah?
It's a great way to just bounce ideas off of everyone brings a lot of experience to the table. And it's just a great way to bounce ideas off of everyone. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, we feel that if we all together are exercising our intellects in order to come to good resolutions on how to handle a client, we're going to deliver a better result to a client. And in the end, that's all we can do. And like everything else in life, but as lawyers, as the client, you say you have to just deal with those consequences, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it too. We had Christina Hall in the room right before this. We were filming our first CLE on the nuts and bolts of legal research, talking about the huddle and issue identification, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is number seven attorneys on that. And it's like, let's talk it out. What do you see? What do you see, Bob? The discussion, the issue identification, evidential rules and strategy. I mean, man, I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly.
And we would like to have nobody better than you here as our number 7. We really appreciate it. But
Lucky 7.
Lucky 7. Unfortunately, it's all the time we have. You listen to WMTR Radio, Nothing But the Truth, the Bob Bianchi, Dave Bruno, every Saturday at our new time, 9:30, a more coveted time. They wanted us at a better time, Dave, because they love what we're doing. But there's also a podcast that drops. Tell our audience.
Not only that, listen, on the radio.
I said the wrong thing. You're right.
Go ahead.
On
the radio. First of all, Bob, I don't know if you know this yet, but we're averaging 2,500 weekly listeners on the radio. Then in addition to that, we are simultaneously airing the video on our LinkedIn profile, on our YouTube profile, and on our Facebook profile. So you could wait for the podcast on Wednesday. Yeah, that's on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Or you go on the LinkedIn page, you register, just like everybody else, and you could watch it instead of listening to it. But you could join the 2500 on the radio, or you could join us, LinkedIn, watching the video. But Paul.
Yeah, you don't have to stop. I was just going to say, just a little tease. And if you do watch it on LinkedIn, you get to see Paul's like really sharp jacket, tie, and shirt combination with the pocket square. Because I'm loving it.
Thank you.
It'd be a great
look.
Christmas present for somebody at the BLG. I'm just saying.
It's a good look. And Bob, and we have the new webpage. The webpage is up. NothingButTheTruthPodcast.com. Guys, check it out. It's brand new. We have featured podcasts up there. We have the best of the best on that front page, and I'm just really excited about BLG CLE. We got CLEs coming out. We have Nothing But The Truth. We're getting some good results. LinkedIn posts, updates. Got it going on, Bob Bianchi.
All right, man. Let's keep doing it.
Let's go.
All right. Peace. All right. Good job.
All right, let's take a pic.
We're the Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
To get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi